emails on my wall. Dumb. Just keeps buzzing.
What are you guys
That's
doing
when
here?
when I said, Jason Hawes, I'm the lead ghost hunter.
That happens quickly.
Wrong show.
Oh, how'd that happen? This is
Hey,
yours.
George, tell them what we're doing here before all the viewers just go through the floor.
Yeah, before they leave us.
Before they leave.
And the great words of Harrison Ford. I don't know. I'm making this up as I go
Strangers
along.
out there.
Yeah, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Haunted Museum Replacement Special.
I like it already.
In the absence of the kids, the graybeards have arrived, with the exception of Elise, who always looks beautiful. We are here tonight because Cody's a gimp at the moment. Here's my problem. Ken, where is Cody right now?
Cody, right now, as an update for everybody, as you've probably heard on their last show, and we've talked about it.
Get ready for this. Go ahead.
Okay, so he has had a hip replacement surgery.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so which any one of the five of us are probably a candidate for.
Anytime.
But he had this done because of, the things that he's dealt with. As far as lymphoma and stuff like that. So it's something he had to have done. So I was getting updates from Satori today. And essentially, he came through everything fine, which we're very grateful for. And he did very well. And as a matter of fact, I'm hoping, beyond hope, that if he's a little grumpy and a little foggy right now, maybe he'll pop in. I hope so. We'll see what happens. But he's actually home. They got him back up. Got him back up on his feet, got him moving a little bit, and who thought a hip replacement surgery would be outpatient? Because minor surgery basically is something when it happens to someone else.
Yeah.
So for those of you tonight,
what's this? Here's it. No, Satori.
Oh, okay.
We got caught.
Troublemakers doing on the show.
Oh, he fought.
We're busted. Run.
Yeah.
Satori, I heard they just wheeled him towards the automatic doors and pushed.
Here's what I'm thinking. And since Satori is watching, I'm sure Cody is also on whatever painkillers they gave him. I'll give you my
We got to make
address.
sure we really butcher the show then.
This is how a show is done, Cody and Satori. This is so you guys, again, you're learning, you're young, you're new. I'm only kidding. They've got the best video intro on the channel. It's incredible. But guys, regardless of it, this is Cody and Satori's night. Please hit the subscribe button, also the thumbs up, and a reminder bell for upcoming content. They are on hiatus. They will be on hiatus. Well, we figured for about a month or so of recovery. I figured Cody would be good to go by 11 o'clock tonight. So we'll be good. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, no, there'll be no problem. I'm not sure what Tori is up to. Maybe keeping watch tonight. So, I mean, I would love her to pop in, or at least she will be watching us tonight with a very keen eye to make sure that come about 3 or 4 weeks from now, she still has a show here. Hopefully, we won't mess it up that bad for you guys.
We're going to do our best.
Yeah.
Hey, I was thinking maybe we should all do a round of introductions for those of you folks out there who are not familiar with us all. So maybe we start clockwise with you, Mr. K, and tell everybody who we are as our special hosts tonight.
Wait a minute. Why aren't our names showing?
I haven't. Well, see,
I noticed that. I had noticed
because
that.
we're on their channel, and this is a couple who knows they need no introduction. So,
oh my God. Okay.
It comes to that. Starting for me, I'm Ken DaCosta. I just work here. I have no idea what I'm doing here.
Work being an exaggerated version of the term, but
indeed.
My name is Jason Hawes. I am the lead actor on Ghost Hunters. Same haircut. It's just a lot of makeup makes the change on there. But good evening, everyone.
And I'm Jonathan Frakes. You may know me as Commander Riker from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
I sees it.
But in real life, I am Christopher Rondina, a folklorist and legend and monster hunter. And of course, we've got our show Monday night, Mysteries, Myths, and Monsters, every Monday night at 8 p.m. A little plug there. So,
yeah.
Oh, yeah. We didn't plug ours, Ken. We'll get to that in a second. Carl and Elise.
I had to put Lona's comment up. Yeah. We love Ken over at Museum Weirdo Group.
Well, we can't help it, yes, but we're just we haven't forgotten who we're replacing. We're just we are humbly here. We are Panorama Paranormal. This is Elise Gianmarco Carlson. I'm Carl Johnson. I wanted to come on and say, I'm Keith Johnson. I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take it anymore. But,
hey, go ahead. I think you just did that.
Oh, I was going to do that. Are we on? Oh my word! Oh, I thought.
Carl, you got to remember though. I mean, you're referencing Network, which probably was on before most of the viewers here were born. It's Cody and Satori's group that's in here right now.
Yeah. It was just for we people here.
So we are Panorama Paranormal. We have a show on the opposite Thursday of Cody and Satori called Panoramic Perspectives, because as we get together, we have two different perspectives. He's known as a demonologist, and I'm more towards the parapsychological angle of things. So we like to bring in people who have different perspectives, like ours, unlike ours, no matter what you're doing, and have a little discussion that goes on for an hour.
And as Einstein said, it is all about perspectives. And I think Tesla
everything is.
And as Ken is sending Satori the link, as she said she's going to try to pop in. Again, my name is George Lopez, Ken DaCosta, and I host Dead Air Live on Sunday nights here on Dead Air Full Spectrum. And it is a live topical show with wonderful guests. And sometimes, as this last week was, live investigations that some of the events are just mind-blowing, absolutely mind-blowing. And Ken, you guys got a lot of review to do, don't you?
Yeah, and we're hoping in a week, once we get all that together, we'll be able to do one of our postmortems where we bring you all the rest of the evidence. Wait, I'm being told.
Oh God, he's got a bug in his ear.
I'm being told that we have.
Someone from
we have. We go live from the scene now. I'm told Satori.
Is that Taylor Swift?
Is, I'm told Satori is miming something. We can't hear you. Still can't hear you. Muted. Can't hear you.
These kids have, they just don't know the technical stuff.
Yeah, it's kids. It's like, unmute. Speak.
This was a great show right up to this point in time.
Maybe you should just pull on your leg.
She'll be back. It figures the actual host of the show has the technical issues.
Oh my goodness! But tonight we just, we decided we were going to get together, kind of a round table, things that are on our mind, things within the paranormal and outside the paranormal. Even if you guys in the chat have certain things that you wish to bring up or you have questions for us, please post that in the chat also. And we'll try to get to all of them for you. It just comes down to who's paying attention to the chat and whether or not those questions are something that we want to look at. So make sure you guys send it our way.
Yeah, I always turn it off.
Yeah, for the most part, we're going to get into some things that may be on our mind here for the next hour or so, but we're going to kind of turn this over to the chat room, as George said. If you have questions for us about anything that is kind of pertaining to our areas here or about the shows, please go ahead. Very interactive tonight.
Specific experiments in mind. Now that's an interesting one.
Specific experiments. Okay. Things that I assume that we're doing in our field, in our investigations, we're always pushing the limits on that. One of the things that we're really dealing with right now with Rise Up is 360-degree technology, where we can do videos of an investigation and allow people, once we post them, to either use the 360 technology on their phones, which is taken by taking two fingers and just kind of panning around the room. And if you're lucky enough to have an Oculus headset, you can literally join the investigation with us.
Right.
We're joined by another guest tonight here.
Uh-oh.
Hello.
The real brains of the outfit. This is Xander, so he's just popping in on Papa here tonight for a little while. So we're always trying. Just don't touch any buttons.
He's getting big.
So yeah,
I'm not sure what those buttons do.
Yeah, so that's what we're kind of doing on our end, Sarah. In terms of documentation, we're trying to do it through virtual reality in real time. So we've almost got it down.
And Angel here says, what has been a frightening moment in any investigations you've done? That's an excellent one.
Xander, how about you? Nothing? Nothing. Press the button.
Give me some time.
I can tell you, I've over the years, I've gone to a lot of very, very scary places, and I'm a little bit jaded, so I don't get spooked too often. But about 2 years ago, was it 2 or gosh, almost 3 years ago now, I think it was. I got to do an overnight investigation at the Conjuring House at the Arnold Farm, and I don't usually go into these things assuming that anything too crazy is going to happen. I have a fairly skeptical mind, and I have to say I got good and spooked that night. I really did. We had quite a very intense experience. There's in between a couple of the rooms up there, and I had the hairs on the backs of my arms standing up and good and chilled. I actually, got a little bit apprehensive about walking from one room to the next because I was so freaked out. So that doesn't happen to me too often. And I wouldn't have been the first one to assume that the so-called Conjuring House was going to produce that effect in me, but it gave me a good solid spook.
Wow.
And Carl and Elise, you want to answer that question also?
A scary moment?
For any moment in any investigation you've done, you probably haven't had any, huh?
He's had more than me. You answer this one.
Yeah, you haven't been at it long enough to have some really scary moments. But then again, it might just be you.
It might just be me.
You have had some encounters. You've had some strange things happen. Scariest one I probably had. But it was before I was paranormal investigating, when I used to see a ghost in my parents' basement several times. But I would say it was my first paranormal investigation, actually, apart from the Conjuring House. It was the first time I had a residential case apart from that. And it was a case of full-blown demonic possession. I mean, I could term it other things. I've analyzed it. I've thought about it. But some really spooky, inexplicable things were happening there in that house. And the subject was a teenage boy, and he was taken over by this invasive personality. He did things of a propensity that a human being shouldn't be able to do, especially not a boy of 14, such as do the wall climb, like the Spider-Man climb, his body like tossing in the air. He couldn't have done those things. religious pictures coming off the wall, not just dropping, but several in succession flying off. It was a spooky environment. So I think that would get to me now. It certainly did back then. And however I analyze it, however I think, okay, I can attribute it to this or that. Some things just cannot be explained away as psychokinesis, as an unseen force propelling things around, and the subject. So I would say that case back, and that goes back to 1981. Yeah.
Let's try this again.
Can you hear me?
There we
go.
Yeah.
Hey.
All right, guys. Thanks for coming. Tori's got this the rest of the way. We're
No,
out of
I
here.
don't.
Nice to see y'all.
Hey, why don't you give us a first hand? We talked a little bit about Cody and what you messaged me on today, but tell a little bit of what's going on right now.
All right. So don't mind my appearance. It's the first time I'm doing the show from the comfort of another room in sweat clothes. So a little
Welcome
update
to
on
my
Cody.
world.
You look funny.
He went in for surgery early morning. He got out about 11:30-ish. That's when I kind of messaged you, Ken. I messaged you right after I found out. They said that it was a bit of a struggle because of how his hip bone was very brittle because the leukemia, the radiation treatments, the chemotherapy, that stuff. So it was a good thing we got it as soon as we did.
Sure.
Because if we waited any longer, I mean, we did worry that if he did break it, there would be nothing we could do to replace it because it would be pieces. So they replaced it. Actually, they said it was a very interesting looking hip bone because of the treatments he had. So it looked a little funny. He was telling me about that. When he got out, he had to sleep for a while. He woke up. He was very groggy. He's still kind of dealing with a little bit of foggy brain. So, like, you try to have a conversation with him. He's mostly there, but every now and then.
Again, welcome to my world.
Every now and then he's a little, he gets really tired and he's very frustrated. But that's a good sign because he's being stubborn and trying to move around and get up. So it's typical Cody. So that's a good sign.
It is a good sign.
Sounds like him. Is it Tad stubborn? Is he not? He doesn't want to stay down.
Nope, not at all.
So
Hi,
that's
guys.
good. So we'll have a little bit of a recovery period, some PT, the process, and everything like that. But tell everybody, because we talked a little bit about how this is crazy. We come from a different time where hip surgery, you were, out of it for 6 months. And, tell us, what's the recovery like in terms of the time frame?
Well, they told him that somebody that was older would be probably to be fully recovered around 8 to 12 weeks. But they said that since, he's young and he wants to get up and move and things like that, they don't expect it to be more than like 2 months before he's really feeling back to normal. And that's kind of giving some time. But when he got the surgery, they told him as soon as you're able to walk, you can leave. Because, the new bionic hip materials they got. I told him, I was like, you should have asked for one with Bluetooth speaker at that rate, because they're so advanced. But
Yeah.
When you talk about older people, George and I raised your hands. The other three of you, get them up there. Let's go.
Hey, I'm only in my exceptionally late 20s.
Don't remind me.
Yeah.
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 Hey, Tori, are you going to hang with us a little bit tonight? I hope, or are you?
Yeah, I can hang with you for a little bit until Cody answers and's like, "Why are you on the show?"
We give you like a ding, 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 ding.
Yeah,
Just
give me a
give him
warning.
another pill. He'll be fine.
We'll get back and see Cody Ray. We've got to do something funny for him. Don't Satori, don't tell him we're going to do this. You can be in on it if you want. Actually, it's something to do with like refrigerator magnets. They're easy to get. And just everybody who goes by, just toss one. Toss it up in the air and see if it, changes and goes toward him.
That sounds awesome.
It take him a while to catch on that it's a joke. Oh, you've got a power now. Whoa.
There you go. There you go.
Do keep in mind that those of you who are subscribed to Cody and Satori's Patreon account, you will have a chance of winning Cody's old hip.
Oh, he tried. He tried to keep it. He really did. He actually told the doctor, he was like, "Can I keep this?" And they were like, "We can't let you have this."
You know that's going into the museum. You know it. I know it. Why pretend?
Technically, it belongs to him. I don't know how they can keep it.
It is
They
the,
said that it was, the biohazard and all that.
Yeah.
He's like, "Just give it to me. I want it." And they're like, "No, we can't do that."
It might still have his memories. And
Throw it in the sink with a little bit of Dawn dish detergent. It'll be fine.
That's
finally
right.
the guy finally contributes something on his own to the museum, and they want to take it off.
We should have made it into jewelry, some sort of necklace.
Wait. Go
Let's
on.
go.
I'm gonna write this down. Go.
Well, let's get this show on the road started topically. I know that we had one question already. There's a few more questions that have been asked in the.
Let's go.
This, Adam here says, when are you going to do your next investigation? I know.
What are you doing?
Ken, you've definitely
My
got
backdrop is falling. Hold on, camera off.
stylish.
Okay. Yeah,
Sorry, what was the question?
This is the time we play some music or something.
She was Taylor Swift for a while.
This is the mid-show costume change.
It is. It is.
God, thank girl.
It has been a long day. Give me a break.
It's mellow.
All right.
Yeah.
That's not in our job description.
Beautiful.
All
There we
right.
All right, where will we go? Where are you going to do the next investigation?
Me? Where am I going to do the
I don't
next
know.
investigation?
That's kind of an open question, I guess.
I know. I don't know. I believe that it might be just another investigation leading at the Conjuring House is the next time we might be up and moving enough where we can do that because we are scheduled for one there. But I'm not 100% sure because we don't know how long this recovery will take before he's really willing to stand that long and walk around that much.
Those staircases.
Yeah, no staircases for a
Wow.
while for him.
Yeah.
Ours, actually, I'm going to echo that because ours, unless something pops up here in the next couple of weeks, we do have some things to get to, but ours will be at the Conjuring House on 17th of next month. So unless something pops up, we'll be there.
My next big project is a couple months away, but in April I'll be traveling in southern France on the trail of one of the greatest werewolf legends in history. Looking forward to that.
I know who he means.
Gonna try to come back and with all my limbs intact, but we'll see how that works out.
We have a question here. George, I'm just going to run these down. What the heck? Listen, guys, if we stay here for an hour or 90 minutes, we own the channel, so we can do whatever we want to. I may do a song from my latest album later.
Nice.
Jessica, question for all of you. Throughout your years of investigating, what is the one thing you have learned about paranormal communication or changed views on? Thanks, Jessica. Thank you that's an excellent question. I'm going to leave that up there for a little bit. So I don't know. We'll just kind of go around.
Well, it looks like I'm.
And that's that. Absolutely nothing, apparently.
I'm gonna go a little controversial here, I think, and say that my what I've learned and maybe my perspective has changed a little bit. In paranormal investigating is I've come to be very, very critical of the tech. In a lot of these cases, not what I would call the standard tech, but rather the popular tech, the EM pumps and the spirit boxes and things like this, because I've just come to be very, very doubtful of this technology and about the logic behind it. And I've often found that many of these things, the Ovilus boxes and things like that, just don't hold up to scrutiny. And so controversial though it may be, I've come to believe that most of that stuff is just smoke and mirrors, that there is still some tech that I believe is very reliable. And some of it's just the classic old fashioned stuff. An infrared camera is going to pick up changes in temperature temperature, and that's perfectly legitimate. Electromagnetic field detectors. You know what? If something exists, it's most likely going to have an electromagnetic field. So that's something that I can buy into. But once you start getting into ghost communication devices that scan through radio waves and stuff like that, it becomes very, very doubtful to me. So I've developed a very skeptical attitude, and I have not yet had a direct experience to change my mind on that.
Okay, send your emails to Chris Rondina at
I'm
deadair.
using the hate mail.
Now that he's pulling down walls.
I agree,
Yeah.
Chris, that a lot of people that use these things don't know exactly how they work. And how can you say that something is random if you don't know how it works and if it is indeed random?
Yeah.
To be picking up these words here and there and not phrases from 92 Pro FM.
Yeah.
Well, most of them are not inventions so much as they are modifications of existing devices, detecting
Variation of a
devices.
theme.
They've been applied to paranormal investigation, which there's some good results. They're tools you can use. Just don't bet everything on them.
Yeah. Real quick. I use what I use. I've been in it long enough to know what works, what I'm comfortable with, what I'm dubious of. But I'm always for try whatever you want to try. I'm open-minded when it comes to that. If you've got, I understand a lot of these things have the same motherboard and different packaging, so I get that. But it's just like selling or promoting any product. To me, I have the things that we do. I'm a believer in yes is more. The technology that I believe in is the stuff you use to document, whether it's environment, whether it's video, photographic. As those things improve, we're all for. We talked about 360-degree technology before, how it can apply to an investigation. So I'm good with that, but not to get too hung up on the tech stuff. The thing I've learned about paranormal communication is just basically being conciliatory. And I knew this from a long time ago, but it's even more important, and it's presented itself to me more, is this idea of having a legitimate conversation, a sincere conversation with whomever you're trying to contact with. And, we often talk about respect. So that's a given, to me and everybody here, just with respect, and not so much perform or do tricks for us, but just try to understand that there has to be a capability and a willingness on the other side to do this, because you're not going to do it on demand or by request. So to me, the things that I've learned is that respect and a pleasant conversation goes a long way in getting good results. So to me, that kind of sums it all up as far as our approach to it.
I'm right with you on that one.
Satori?
Okay, it's my turn. I was waiting.
Your turn.
What is one thing I learned? And by the way, Jessica, thank you so much for your support. I see your comments all the time. It means the world to us. One thing I have learned, I learned that when I touch Cody's hand, we talk to dead people. That's one thing I learned. Don't really know how that works. We're still trying to figure that one out. Also, I've learned that it takes a lot of energy to actually communicate with the other side. So what, at least in the form that I have been doing it, or we have been doing it, that it's a big energy drainer. I kind of agree. I really agree with Chris when it comes to the tech, some of the technology. When I see some of that stuff being used, I hate to be, that skeptic when that stuff's being used, but in the back of my brain, I'm always going, it's pre-programmed, or it's a radio scan and you just caught that word, or I'm always doing that in my head. Maybe it's just not my thing. Maybe it's something that I just haven't had my experience with it yet, kind of thing. But yeah, that's the one thing I learned. It takes a lot of energy to talk to the dead, but they are very willing to talk back if you can establish that connection.
Definitely her father's daughter.
Hey, I'll watch it. I love it. I love to see some of the results. There have been some things I really can't explain, but I just want that solid thing that would win me over,
Yeah, cool.
So.
I agree 1,000%. How about you, George? I know that you do a lot with spirit boxes, things like that. Where are you coming down on that?
to me, a lot of things have changed since this one and her partner, uh, and the things that they're doing, and the communication is astounding. Sunday was astounding. Uh, Away from, because it was about what have I learned about paranormal communication, not about the equipment used for it. And I think what I learn as time goes on is that there's a lot more to learn. We don't know everything, and we're learning about how they read our thoughts. We're learning about how they can move from one location to another in the speed of a thought, or are they omniverse and can be everywhere at the same time, any spirit, anytime, at any place. And I think it's hard for us to wrap our head around this type of communication, in the sense that we just look at it as what we're doing right now on screen, or we think of it as what we're doing in a telephone call. It's a person to person. And I don't think that what is existing on the other side of the veil we could even begin to comprehend. But they're simplifying it for us and making it easier for us for communication, whether it's just a simple knocking or using the devices, interacting, or our own wishful thinking that what we're communicating with is spirit and not just some technical soundboard that just comes across so that we get answers that we want to hear, whether it's I'm a demon or get out. It's there's a lot more exploration that needs to be done. And again, I know Ken and I've had this conversation. Satori, you and Cody and what you're doing, we're blessed to be front row in this journey, because it's just beginning, and who knows what more that you will uncover and discover, and how much more advanced this communication will continue, because every event that I've experienced with you guys so far has been mind-blowing. Kudos.
Oh, thank you so much. That means the world to us. And just to kind of add to that point, that they're always everywhere and they kind of have that knowledge over there. And I just want to say that here's my bi-weekly announcement, because I do this on every show. I kind of imply this. When you pass, I've noticed that you gain a lot of wisdom. You gain a lot of knowledge that people that are living do not have, and they'll make it known to you. For example, Cody and I are still learning things, and I can't tell you how many times I've been called an idiot by the other side, because I'm just not grasping these things that are so natural to them
That's
now.
rude.
They're like, why are you like this? But it's just, there's a lot of knowledge, like George said, that we do not understand, and we will never understand until we get there.
Well, I thought initially you were going to say one thing you've learned about the other side is we gain, and I thought you were going to say weight or something. I want to go because, like I say, we're just going to have some fun tonight. So we're turning this over to the chat, because you guys are so great, so loyal to us to follow. So we want to see if we can answer some questions tonight from you. And we have another one from our friend Melissa Blackman. Let me see if I get this up there.
Sorry, go ahead.
Going back and forth. Melissa, I would like to know, and we'll do this really quickly. I would like to know the first location each of you investigated and approximately when. Well, Melissa, Jesus and I went out one day. No, for me, it was 1975. And there was the typical haunted place in Tiverton, and it had a widow's watch. It was actually a sea captain's house. I know that's cliche, but it actually was on the Seconic River. And I got into this, and we'd ride by it on the school bus, and the kids would point, it's a haunted house. So I talked to a buddy of mine, because he was working there as an apprentice plumber. And I said, gee, I'd like to get into the place. He says, I'll see if I can do that. So after work, as they were packing up, I showed up. He got me in. His boss just shot me nothing but dirty looks, crazy kid looking for ghosts. The bottom line, spoiler alert, nothing happened. Back then, we probably did more to scare ourselves than anything else. But that's the first place that I did. And the place still exists here in Tiverton, Rhode Island, where I live. And just amazing. And I still hear the stories that even today, the family who lives there are some weird things, nothing that's, that overt or scary or anything like that. But it's the first real place that I ever went into. I'm not going to count cemeteries and things like that. But it was a pretty cool place to start. And geez, I'd love to get back in there now. And that's it.
All right.
Anyone else? The first
place that I think I was ever actually called on to investigate, and I didn't really, there was no tech at the time, and I didn't have much experience.
I'll be right back.
I was specifically called by a friend of my parents who knew that I was into spooky stuff, and they were living in a house that had some historic significance, and there were a lot of reports of ghosts. They had seen children at the foot of their bed and everything else, and so they called on me to spend the night there and see if I had any kind of experience. And I'm going to go ahead and be perfectly blunt that I did not, but I was specifically called there because the house was allegedly haunted, and it is a house with a great history. It's the Clement C. Moore house, and Clement C. Moore, if you are familiar with the name, is the man who wrote The Night Before Christmas, or A Visit from St. Nicholas, as it's known, the very famous poem. And it's in Newport, Rhode Island. It's a beautiful old Victorian house. It's now been separated out into condos, but it was the very first place I was ever actually called on to go and try and find a ghost. I didn't. I wish I could say that I did, but certainly as far as cool houses to visit, that's basically the house where Santa Claus was born, so I can't complain about that.
Oh my goodness. All right, Carl and Elise.
Yeah, well, for me it was, I'd say, Druid's Dream in Narragansett near the ocean.
Very cool.
That was purported to have phantom lights and all different kinds of conversion activity. And yeah, it did not disappoint, because what we got principally that time, I was 17 years of age, and our team out of Rhode Island College was hearing, well, at first I thought it must be branches groaning, but then we realized it was growling, but not an animal growl. No, it was moaning. The woods around us were moaning. And I've thought of, like, could it be swaying branches? Could it be some kind of animal distress out there or threatening? No, it was a human-like groaning. It had a voice to it. The environment came alive. I don't know what I can't attribute anything in that area's past, except maybe it was a convergent ley line or something. But yeah, the environment was groaning and growling. It was letting us know it was in some kind of distress. So I can't explain it, but I loved experiencing it.
Never had a chance to get into that house. I've always wanted to.
Well, my first
Elise, yeah.
Yo, you tell us about yours, Elise.
It was also in Rhode Island. It was in Warwick, Rhode Island. It was the Warwick Historical Society, and parts of the house were built late 1600s, early 1700s. It was just.
Oh, you're not going to say you were with me that night, right?
Yeah, I was with you that night. It was
Go ahead. Tell the story.
And it was
We almost got her killed.
hell that night. And we're like, oh, is this what it's all about? It's hot. We're just walking around the dock with flashlights. And Ken had told everybody, why don't you come downstairs, sit around the table, cool off. I don't need anybody passing out. And there was one room air conditioner at the kitchen, blowing on the table. So we didn't have any recorders on because it was just making too much noise. And someone from the group grabbed a piece of paper that had a list of the hundreds of people who lived there throughout the years. It's, Mr. Smith, are you with us? Mr. Arnold, are you with us? And we're like, okay, this is what we do, I guess. And then they got to Mr. Westcott, are you with us? And the Westcotts had operated a sawmill there and or around there. And
they made the rulers.
The wooden rulers, yeah.
Yes,
Even
rulers.
to this day, Westcott makes rulers. Only now they're not just wooden; they're everything else too. And every time I see a Westcott ruler, I think of this story. And as she said that, there was a display of. It was kind of a weird display. It was a piece of cardboard that had rulers glued to it, but it was on a wrought iron easel, a big easel. And I had seen it earlier. I really didn't pay it much attention. But when she said, "Mr. Westcott, are you with us?" the easel leaned forward, and it had been leaning backwards. It leaned forward, came off balance, and landed right on the back of my head. Ken saw it, my sister saw it, my friend saw it, so I still have witnesses through the years. And that was my first investigation, and that's why I was hooked, because you didn't have to hit me over the head to tell me there are ghosts.
Yeah. What would Jerry Seinfeld say about that? Coincidence? I think not. That had been in place for a long time. I've
See,
heard.
you just made a bunch of people jealous. The idea
The only
the first
time I'm
time you
gonna-
go into the place
First time
and
he
you
goes
get
out,
something crashing down
I've been
on
waiting,
your head.
what, 10 years?
a ghost answering you saying, "I am here." You know,
Yeah, that was pretty good, I gotta say.
that's stellar.
For me, the first ghost hunt was 2006, but that's not what was asked in the question. The first paranormal investigation. First ghost hunt was in St. Augustine at the cemeteries. Beautiful area again. But the first paranormal investigation was actually with regards to serial killer Eileen Wuornos.
Oh wow!
Oh yes.
At the time, I'd lived in Port Orange, and again, it's a very small, very friendly area. Daytona is very small, and I met the owner of the Last Resort Inn, which is the bar where Eileen was arrested at, and it was her regular stop. And we investigated the Last Resort, the Happenings Bar, and the Fairview Motel, which is where she and her girlfriend stayed at. And we caught some great activity. Satori got introduced again to Amanda. Amanda was there during the investigation also. And, some really interesting EVPs, including I Want Beer, coming across while two of the girls were talking. I want beer. It was pretty cool stuff. So, yeah, it was Eileen Wuornos back in 2007 or 2008, that area.
How about you, Tori? First one.
Well, investigation wise, I don't know if it counts, but as soon as I was able to walk, I was holding a flashlight trying to be like Dad, investigating my house, hoping that he brought something home so I could show him that I caught something. When I was a little bit older than that, because my parents believed that, be an adult before you start going after this stuff. At least be old enough to make your own decisions. So when I was a teenager, tiny, between like preteen, I'd say, my family did own, between when I was younger to about that age, a hotel in New Hampshire. And that's where I had some of my first experiences. For example, it was so normal that we had to knock on the doors before opening
That
them.
was Spalding Inn, right?
Yes, the Spalding Inn. And if I ever have enough money, I win the lottery and buying that place back. You knock on the doors and you have to say, "Can I come in?" Or else the doors will lock on you. Or we'll hear like people yelling at us if we're goofing off in the hallway when nobody's booked out the rooms, things like that. But the first real deal investigation I went on, where my family was like, "Okay, you can go to actual clients and go to events and stuff if you really want to," was the first night I met Cody. And we went to the Primitive Crow in Bosra, Connecticut. And that was my first test run on the home team. And that's actually the first time weird stuff started happening. It was the first day we met. But the Primitive Crow, an antique store.
That's right up the street from me. Beautiful place.
Beautiful.
Cool. I got a place to stay when I visit you then.
All right.
Next event. Just hang
Hey,
out
want
with
to
Chris.
quickly note here that Lorna had said, please post a link to the other groups. They'd like to check them out. Lorna, just the easiest thing that you can, I'm sorry, Lona, I apologize. The easiest thing you can do actually on YouTube is under Dead Air Full Spectrum. If you go to the Dead Air Full Spectrum page on YouTube, you will actually be able to scroll down and see all of our individual channels. And that way, any of them that appeal to you, you can click on them and see what we do. And you can even subscribe if you feel so inclined and watch us every week.
Hi, Lona.
All right, so moving on. We got a bunch. We got 10 in queue right now. So
Wow.
yeah,
10 questions, yeah.
we'll hang out, and it's like, we just as a thank you to everybody who supported us. But our good friend Joseph Freza, question: what's one thing in the paranormal or location you want to investigate that you haven't yet? Jeez, I don't know, but it would, for me, staying in this country. Oh my, that's a tough one. That's kind of a tough one. What would I? There's places I'd like to go back to that we can't.
1975.
Yeah. If I had one place that I would probably like to go and take a look at, it would probably be the Edinburgh Vaults in Scotland, or Greyfriars Cemetery. Same general area.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to give you a long-winded, why, but just, you can look it up and do a little research on it. You'll know what I mean. But those are the two places that more than anything I'd like to see, like Mary King's Close, the Edinburgh Vaults, Greyfriars Cemetery.
We should plan a trip together, Ken, because I was going to drop a Scotland reference too. It's a place that I had actually hoped to get to last spring, and time and tide just didn't take me there. But Hermitage Castle in Scotland, I'm in Newcastle, Scotland. Hermitage Castle is a 13th century castle that has an amazing legend behind it. It was originally owned by a man called Lord Soulis, who was alleged, folklorically speaking, to be a warlock who had pledged his soul to the dark forces and ended up having a familiar, which was a red cap. A red cap is a sort of a vicious kind of a goblin from old Celtic folklore. And the red cap, called Red Cap Robin, is this murderous goblin that is supposed to still haunt the ruins of Hermitage Castle to this day. But he had granted Lord Soulis immortality, they say, or basically he was unable to be killed by any mortal weapon. So the folklore, whether this agrees with history or not is a different question, but the folklore says that when they finally discovered the evil that Lord Soulis had gotten up to, they couldn't kill him with any mortal weapon because he had sold his soul. So they were forced to boil him alive in lead and let the lead harden around him to entomb his immortal body so that he couldn't escape, and then bury it on the grounds of the castle. And you know what? If I can go and find an immortal warlock and a murderous goblin in Scotland, I'm all for it.
Well, boiling in lead, I mean, that'll do it. I would imagine theoretically. Elise and Kyle, how about you? Is there a Awana thing out there that,
Yes, I'm just trying to look at the address of it. As a matter of fact,
expense wasn't an issue?
I was going to say a couple of locations in Scotland, but Chris covered them.
Hey, let's make it a
Oh,
party.
you want to go? It's like road trip. Let's do it.
Three of us are, hell bent on it.
Field trip.
I've always been fascinated with accounts of people selling their souls to the devil, or what's the grim reality behind that, and the red cap, like there's Johnny Redcap is known in Scotland. I think there's something to that. The little people are sometimes pretty monstrous. But what I want to go to, it's outside of Santa Monica in California. It's actually on the outskirts of Hollywood, and it's where, I don't know, well, we're of an age, at least Ken and I are. There used to be this television show, it was broadcast, a little before my time. It was on from 1952 to 1957. It was called The Adventures of Superman. You remember that? Starring George Reeves. And I mean,
are you kidding? I still have the intro memorized.
Yeah.
The whole
Faster than a speeding bullet, more powerful than a locomotive, able to leap tall buildings in a single bound. Yeah, well, you know it.
Yeah.
We do know it. Many of us were brought up with it, or we've seen it in the reruns. Well, it is rumored that actor George Reeves, who starred as Superman, and he had quite an interesting career as an actor.
You're talking about his house?
His house, where he was killed. Supposedly, the official report was he committed suicide, took his life. But there were a lot of discrepancies with that investigation. He most probably was murdered, and we will never know. But because it's no longer within living memory, his ghost was seen there, and I believe it.
Yeah.
There's a person who became a movie producer, and he went there as a little boy, maybe he's about 12, and he saw George Reeves' ghost there. And enough people have that I believe it. It has all the criteria of a genuine haunt, and it was an intelligent haunt, you might say. He was in the house. It was, closed up, but he pushed his way in, was looking around, and it wasn't too many years after Mr. Reeves had died. And he's heard a familiar voice say, "What are you doing in here, young man?" He looked up and he saw George Reeves in a Superman suit, but it wasn't in like the regular color of the Superman suit. It wasn't bright red and blue. It was muddy brown, kind of like tawny color, which is interesting because what that person that the producer who had that producer to be who had that experience, he didn't know that when they filmed the black and white episodes, his suit was in muted colors, so it'll show up better in black and white. So that's how the original costume would have looked. And what was interesting about this apparition, besides that he recognized it as George Reeves' Superman, he had a bullet hole in his head, with a little blood coming out of it. And it's just fascinating. I would like to go there if I could.
It's a ranch style house. It's not some big sprawling stars mansion.
No, it's a modest house, and it was
Elise, how about yourself? If you could jump on a plane.
Usually I would say you investigate when you have reports of activity. There's no need to investigate without it. But I would be willing to go hang around Graceland and see if Elvis shows up.
Elvis or somebody else now.
Wait, I hear stirring in another room. I think it's Cody. He's getting up.
No, it's not his time yet.
Graceland,
Well, I would say, again, unfortunately or fortunately, depending upon how you want to address it, experiencing what Cody and Satori are achieving now tells us, and again, Sunday, and you guys get a chance to go back and watch the episode. And somebody had asked in the chat, how did I send this person, Amanda, to the theater that they were at this past Sunday, Alley Theater? And I just said it aloud. I always called it Spirit Email, and I talked to Amanda, and I said, Amanda, please go up to Alley Theater and see if you can communicate with Cody and Satori. And it happened. So now I'm wondering, in those circumstances, such as you're talking about Elvis, or you're talking about spirits that are in Europe, can they just travel at the speed of thought? If Cody and Satori were to say, we'd like George Reeves to show up or Elvis to show up, kind of like it's very, very convenient then. Plus, as I said before, and I'm right there with Elise, there's a difference between what we call ghost hunting. You're going to a place to establish the existence of spirit activity, and paranormal investigation, you're investigating a location that's already had claims. We've been talking, it's in the rumor mill if we can set it up to go back to the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum. And that's the one place, the very first question tonight about the investigations that were scary. And I wouldn't say that it was scary for me, but it certainly had my Achilles heel in the geriatric ward. And a spirit there that, running in my brain, not an audible sound, not a disembodied, not even an EVP, that was caught later on by somebody else. But I kept getting, come and play with me at the end of the hall. And I could not move. The tightness of my chest could not move. So I have to defeat that. I have to go back and do that sometime here in the future. Hopefully very, very soon.
Yeah.
And if I could just interject if you're done, George. I don't like.
Yes.
But yeah, where George Reeves died, where he lived for a time and died, Benedict Canyon, Los Angeles, California. And what must have happened is I was like typing in some of the letters to get that information, and my phone must have heard my voice because that came through while I was talking. So Benedict Canyon, Los Angeles, that's where George Reeves died. It was a raised ranch house, and I certainly would like to get in there. It's not accessible now, but I don't know. I might make a donation, beg. I don't know.
Everyone, there was just a couple of comments about us. So the group dressed up on stage, Cody in a red hat. You're going to have to go to Dead Air Full Spectrum and watch the live investigation if that means absolutely nothing to you to find out what we're talking about. So, Tori, we come to you now. You got a wish list or place or places out there?
Yeah, I have a couple. Obviously, like Trans-Allegheny, Rolling Hills, Eastern State. I want to visit those places because talking to the dead, I feel like I could help some people that might be confused or might feel like they can't leave, or they might feel responsible for the things that happened to them in some way. So I want to do my best to help them with that. Also, I would love to see.
This year, I promise you, Rolling Hills. If you sit, we'll call Sharon.
Yeah, of course. I want to help as many, not obviously be like, you have to go. Just be I want you to know you're not crazy. You're okay.
Book flights to Buffalo. We've been there. We've done this drill. So this summer.
I would love that. And I would love to see some of the castles over in other countries, in Europe and other countries. The only thing is communicating with the other side. There's a language barrier when you go back a certain age because they talk different. So, for example, the oldest people that we have talked to is probably from like the 1640s, 1650s. And that took so long just to understand how to spell the words they wanted to spell and how they said the words they wanted to say. And then we had to decipher it. So I can only imagine how long it would take going, doing our method at like an old English castle somewhere. Or, where there's completely a language barrier and they think that we're talking like crazy people compared to the way they would talk. I would love that.
This is why you need Chris Rondina as your Sherpa guide on this.
Oh, Lord. I know 6 words in 12 languages. That's about it.
Go back to the English court of the 14th century. They were all speaking French then, and not even modern French. So
no, like old Frankish and God, no, it can be a nightmare actually.
We would need translators if they know how to speak the language.
We're going to, again, you're watching live from the Haunted Museum, which none of us are at right now, actually, but that's just a mere technicality.
Well, we're in a museum, just not that haunted.
Yeah, we didn't want to do reruns, but at least
we're all relics for what it's worth.
One of the hosts of the show was anyway to keep us in line. And we're gonna keep going. I want to get to these questions because they're eliciting a lot of good responses. We'll try to keep our answers quick to get through this because we're still in double figures there.
Yeah, good luck with that.
John Shadulo Sr. Great question. When you get communication and are getting interaction in your investigations, do you believe they can be from the past or from the future? I'll answer very quickly. I believe it's possible. If you're asking they can be, that there's a possibility in my mind that they certainly can. In my own experience, I don't think that I've ever communicated with anybody from the future. It's all been the past and what we've been able to document. These are people who came before. I just want to mention real quick because this is what a lot of people say is, how come everybody lived in the 1800s that you communicate with? How come no one that's died in 2017? Not entirely correct. We have, talked to a lot of contemporary people and communicated with a lot of contemporary people. No one from 2020 because they're only 2 years old at this point. But most of my experiences probably, I'm going to say, has come from past. But I would not ever say that it's not possible to talk to somebody from the future theoretically because I just don't know. Over to you, whoever we're going.
Yeah, we'll go right across. We'll go Chris.
All right, over to you, Chris.
I am absolutely no expert in sort of temporal paranormal physics, but I will say, just kind of to address what you were saying, Ken, about the people's being skeptical, very wisely so. Why do we never speak to people from 2020, what have you? I have a kind of a crazy theory about that because I do absolutely, although I am very skeptical about a lot of things, I absolutely believe that ghosts, whatever they may actually be, do exist. And part of something I've always believed is that what we often experience as ghosts is sort of an embedded memory, sort of stuck within a space or within a place, and that it actually almost as if we've left an impression, like a coded impression of ourselves on objects and in places. And if you think about the idea that if the presence of a spirit is sort of encoded in a space, in an old house, what have you, by a lifetime lived there or by a traumatic event, that doesn't necessarily make it active. Possibly you've basically just left the pattern in that place. But how much time does it take for it to gather enough or generate enough energy to actually start interacting back? It's like a slow charging battery. I mean, this is completely a theory, but what if it does take a ghost or a memory a long time to absorb enough energy, to sort of manifest enough energy to start actually interacting with people. And maybe that might explain why older places, which have, had generations of people who've lived there, may actually start to activate, and some of these old presences become, sort of become active again and start interacting. Again, it's just a theory, but it's one that I've often wondered about. And so that's the closest I can give to an answer on that one. Certainly, I do believe that people who have died in the past probably believe that they are still in that time and would interact that way. And I'm with Ken. I have never yet experienced a communication from the future. If I ever start getting communications from the future, I hope it's me coming back to slap myself and tell me what not to do.
Right. Exactly.
You'll give yourself some good advice.
Good Lord knows I hope so.
It also could be, just talking about what Chris is talking about, that a recording of a person who lived in a place, a haunting, could be a completely different thing than an apparition or a ghost. A haunting is a recording by a living person. Say you're watching a movie, you're watching Superman, you're watching George Reeves. He's dead, but you still have that recording. It can be played over and over and over. Whereas an apparition, it could be the consciousness of a person who's, that is still existing past the existence of their body. It could be a completely different thing between a haunting and an apparition, where you can't really talk to a haunting. Buildings are haunted, places are haunted, locations are haunted, and apparitions are, this is a theory, of course, could be the existence of consciousness that can respond and answer questions and tell you things about being in the future. I don't know. I just usually hear about them being in the past.
Carl.
Well, I can cite an example. Going back about 26 years, I had a laptop that had got a bug into it, got a virus, and it had been dropped a few times too. But this virus had gotten into it. It's mine, so it got dropped. And when it started acting up, it needed to be. It just needed to be redone at that point. We used to do, defibrillating. Oh, that's
defragmenting.
Yeah, defragment. Like that. No, but I'm trying to show you my age. No, but actually, seriously, what it would do is I would type, it would jump back. I can be funny more too. I can do that. Yeah.
Don't encourage him.
No, but I say things with a straight face, and it's no fun unless it's funny to me. But I would be typing, and it would jump back like lines before, and and I'm like looking around, looking at the keyboard, and I look back up, and it's like it's back to my first sentence. I was on sentence number 3. I was done with my paragraph, and now it's back to my first sentence. I just couldn't get it to imprint. The text would not stay. That was how it was, exhibiting its symptoms. It needed to be adjusted. And I think a spirit is like that in a sense. They will go forward in linear time for a while. They'll respond as if they have a consciousness. All of a sudden, they're back to where they were when they died. They jump back, and it's not even their choice. So I think they're limited in that sense. They can behave out of habit from when they were living. They can behave as if they're cognizant, aware of their surroundings, but they jump back. They jump back. They jump back. They can't go forward. They can't learn more. They cannot learn. They can become aware that someone's around them, but then they're back again. It's just a temporal thing. As you said, Christopher, it's, they don't stay growing.
Most things in nature will try to attain homeostasis. So
right. Yeah. They're a meta pattern. The meta pattern can't grow. It will break down, but it can't grow.
We wanted a quick shout out Tom Stewart. Our friend Tom Stewart, My Paranormal Story. If you haven't listened to that podcast, check it out.
Thank you.
George, what do you think?
I don't know.
That's probably the most to the point. I don't know.
Honestly, we get all kinds of theories, but
I mean, I don't. Time to me is not a factor with regards to this communication. It's the essence of what it is that we're communicating about and learning from. So, I don't care if they're telling me, hey, when you reach this time in your life, because we're from the future, or, they're from the past and they say, this is how you can best communicate with us from the 1800s. It doesn't matter as long as that dialogue continues. Satori?
From what I have experienced, and I'm saying that because I'm not tearing down anybody else's like theories or ideas. It's just my own beliefs and my experiences along with Cody, which I'm sure he would agree with me. Is that from what we've experienced, we've only ever talked to people from the past that have passed away. I mean, it can be just yesterday that they passed away, or it can be 200 years ago that they passed away. It all depends. But we've never talked to anybody from the future. We often make jokes though, like, are we ever going to talk to ourselves from the future through like knocking noises? Like, are we going to do that at one point? Which is really funny to think about. I'm trying to think of anything. I just had a thought in my head and it completely went out the other side of my ear and flew that way.
It went into your.
I think strangely you just answered the question correctly.
Yeah, I think I know what he's saying.
What I was going to say, I know they have a consciousness from what I have experienced from the people that have communicated with me, but I also believe that there are different kinds of hauntings because I've had spirits come through. Ken knows this very well, that Cody and I have had spirits come through that have experienced residual hauntings themselves. They're seeing people that won't interact, but they interact and they're answering our questions about that person that won't interact. And we've had spirits, I've had to spend 45 minutes explaining to spirits that just because you have a cell phone doesn't mean you're a witch. So it's like they still keep their mental, like the way they thought back then, but it's like they're just still going through time as if they're still back then and they still have that mindset. It's like they're still going to be in their stubborn ways, which is interesting to me.
I've been in the presence of Pain House when a spirit literally said to Satori, "Oh, then you're a witch."
Yes, because Jacqueline Nunez held up her phone and I was trying to explain that you can search things on this magic box. And so Jacqueline holds up her phone and goes like this, it's in real time. And all of a sudden the spirit goes, "So she's a witch." And I'm like, no. You have to shut that down right away.
That time frame would be an accurate definition. It would give you an answer. It would give them
know the unknowable.
It gave that spirit.
Think about that for a minute. That we had done a case here in Rhode Island, Cody and Satori, we brought the gang in there, where an intelligent, interactive spirit acknowledged the presence of a residual spirit.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it came out is, do you see that woman who walks back and forth here? And the answer was, yeah, she don't talk to anybody.
That's awesome.
And if you think about that on another level, it's like, oh my God, he's seeing this replay.
But he doesn't understand that it's residual. He thinks that she's being a brat or snobby.
Like stuck up.
It's perspective.
You know?
I imagine we experience that ourselves. I mean, there's got to be times when we, in our everyday lives, see things that we consider to be very ordinary and don't really understand what's actually going on, including the possibility of seeing ghosts that we don't realize are ghosts. You know, I mean, I think that that's a perfect possibility that you know, you are tuned into a particular person that you've seen many, many times, but never interacted with, and never give them a second thought and have no idea whether or not that they are actually there.
I'm going to keep Tori up here because I'm going to hit you with another one real quick. And only you can answer this.
Okay.
Okay. Comes from Dorothy. Tori, I meant to ask you, does it wear you and Cody out when you both touch?
After a couple of communication sessions, it starts to, but it's in different ways. For example, it'll start to, we both feel very tired. We get hungry. Sugar helps. For anybody that needs to learn how to try to do this, we can just say that we know sugar helps. Or junk food. That sounds really not good, but it does. I promise. But Cody usually gets pain in his legs after a while. He describes it as shin splints is what he says it feels like. And my head always hurts in the same spots on my head after a while. So somebody has theorized that maybe the way the energy is moving, almost like electricity, like, you know what I'm saying, can cause some weird reactions to happen, but it does tire us out.
Is it fair to say that sometimes when you touch, the honesty's too much
Oh my God, you're reading my mind,
I was
John.
saying, is he really going to go that far with
So
it?
you have to close your eyes and cry. Old song reference. I'll have to.
Oh God.
I'll send
We
it.
are
Oh
of an
my
age,
God.
yeah. I know you're laughing, you know.
All right, Dad.
Go ahead, Ken.
Okay, really quickly, Sarah Yusuf, our good friend Sarah, always asks great questions. So this pertains to 95% of us.
Go ahead.
What's going on up here?
I don't know what's happening.
I'm
But
all over the place.
Not that again. Not that. No.
Okay, guys, what makes New England paranormally special? Do you think other regions have the same density of activity but without the attention? Standard answer here. You're talking about early settlements. You're talking about all the elements of what is theorized to bring a haunting. Age, tragedy, misfortune, your environment. It was difficult growing crops here until eventually they learned how to do it in this particular climate. There were a lot of European superstitions that were brought over, including that of vampirism and witchcraft, and and everybody I think was trying to find their way in the puritanical sense in the New World, until eventually there was a splinter into religious freedoms. So all of these things contributed to, what I believe is some hardships, but I don't necessarily think under any, ghosts being trapped, I think is overdone a little bit. I think the spirits that communicate, for the most part, have free will to do so. But there are a lot of reasons for communication, unfinished business, things like that. I'm sure those things exist, which is why we never do cemeteries, because that's the last stop on the tour. Why would a cemetery be haunted, so to speak?
I spend a lot of time in cemeteries, and I have never seen a thing.
Yeah. Although, I'm sure that some are, but, I'll let everybody kind of expound on that, but just to kind of set the outline on it. And I think other regions do have the same density, particularly as we head out west, because that's a different type of, again, settlement, hardship, trauma, as people progressed into the west through indigenous lands, the Badlands, as they call them, out to the land of milk and honey, the West Coast. So those particular regions, every place has these type of things, but I think New England, in my own biased opinion, it kind of sets itself aside, because the other thing is, in New England, you don't necessarily just have the paranormal, but you have the stories.
Yeah,
and they're just so compelling and wonderful.
We take a lot of pride in it, which I think is something that's very regionally potent. And I think that has a great deal to do with it, in terms of not just the fact that we sort of, perpetuate these stories maybe more passionately than some other regions do, but it may even help that we are maybe a little more tuned into them because of that. I think that that the more you sort of focus on that wavelength, the more likely you are. But I do think we carry the stories with more pride than a lot of regions, and it is because so many of the people who settled the Northeast and the East Coast in general came over, brought their stories, brought their traditions. We weren't Americans yet; we were still very old world Europeans when we got here, and a lot of people had very, very deep religious views and a lot of superstitions, and that's all been passed on. So, is it more paranormally active? I don't think that it necessarily is, but I think that it is more paranormally attuned, and certainly we have paranormal pride, through the roof here. I know, Satori, I saw you raising your hand. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump on you, but
oh no, you did it. You did it. I agree with
someone out there.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the points. I was also going to add, kind of like Ken touched upon it very lightly, like geological makeup and the minerals in the ground, because they believe that they play a big role in the generating of energy and activity, like limestone and quartz and things like that. Cody always brings that up. And just like you said, Cody literally calls this part of the country the creepy attic of the United States. Everybody here loves to promote that. They're very passionate when they do believe in it. The people that do believe in it really have a lot of pride in it. So that could also be a reason for it. It's a long history as well.
I believe that 100%.
Yeah,
Okay,
no
fellow
doubt.
New Englanders, what say you?
Huh. It's hard to add to what what you folks have said already, but Providence, Rhode Island has its own zeitgeist. People who have traveled here have said that. It's especially if they spend any amount of time here, they will see the historic sites. And I always say Rhode Island's a great place to visit, but do you want to live here? And well, I do. And it generates something. I think it's basically geological. I think it's a big battery, and components in the soil and the bedrock, and it is interpreted through our emotions, and it does maintain many of those emotions, which under special conditions they're rebroadcast. And you're talking about people that were settling here over 3 centuries ago, and they were very, very religious, very faithful in most cases, and they had to learn over and over again the harsh lessons, like, why isn't God helping us? We've sinned. God is punishing us, and after a while they'd abandon their illusions about divine providence, and they would just suffer. And a lot of that is still with us. But if you can picture what I get in my mind, and of course H.P. Lovecraft was very inspired to write his disturbing tales, living in Providence. For some reason, it's that feeling that one would get, especially when you're younger, as Halloween is coming on you. The October 31st, it is just starting to get dark, and it's coming on. It's that kind of feeling all the time in Rhode Island, in Providence, especially if you're around the river. For some reason, the river seems very haunted and very disturbing in a way. I picture a big looming shadow with a pilgrim's hat on. It looks like a storm cloud at dusk, and it's getting dark, and the sky has that eerie greenish glow. And there's this big silhouette. You can almost make it out. It's got a cloak on, and it's got a pilgrim's hat, and it's looking on very disapprovingly, looking down at people. It's still with us.
That's Roger Williams.
Yeah,
the guy that can't run out of Salem on a rail for being too religiously extreme.
A deadly experiment. Yeah, it's got its own. It's got its ghost. It is its ghost.
I agree about the landscape and the geography of Rhode Island, but it's got me thinking now about my next vacation. I go a couple of times a year to South Dakota. My son lives in Sioux Falls, and you're on top of a big pile of rocks with a lot of water rushing by. You think that would be some sort of a battery if you're subscribing to that description of activity. So now I've got something to do next time I go out there.
There you go.
Well, you have to wonder if Europeans do we tap into Native American spiritual activity as effectively as people would be people of Native descent would be. I mean, I feel like maybe we would be on a different wavelength, and maybe as European, people of European descent, maybe we are less susceptible to what the sort of native magic that's buried in those stones are. I know it's kind of almost, I don't mean to be racially insensitive in any way, but I feel like when you are tuned into a particular spiritual niche, that you're much more likely to be able to sort of pick up on these things. It's like you can't put a Mac app on a Windows phone, and you can't put a Windows app on a Mac phone. Well, you can, but it's a different process.
Right.
All right. Anybody else with thoughts on New England? Alrighty then. This is good. We can have a little fun with this one. Do you ever get ghost cracking jokes with you? In a word, yes, more often than you think. Once you, I think it takes a little bit to establish a relationship, and that means maybe returning to a place where there's an element of trust that builds up. But in a word, yes. And I could play you chapter and verse of recordings and things we have made where they are just poking fun at us, and we're poking fun at them, and everything's good natured. And yes, a sense of humor is part of our character that goes on with us, especially when you feel comfortable around somebody. And if you watch the live Pain House investigation, you know that the lady of the house, Sarah Whipple, thought it was just hysterical that on the first public event that we held there in June of 2011, there was a water main break on Station Street that completely flooded the road. We had emergency vehicles everywhere, and she recalled that particular day, and she just thought it was hysterical that we were out there floundering around in the water. So,
That's wonderful.
yep. So, yes, anybody else wants to weigh in on that, maybe with an experience, you go ahead.
Well, we're emotional creatures, beings, and even animals are emotional, and it's so good that things that survive, like love survives, anger does, and a sense of humor. And like Ken says, there's so many instances. I've named some of them. Now this isn't possible, but it happens. Sense of humor survives. We were at an investigation, and a lot was going on back then, around 2009, 2010, 2011, and we were at a house in North Providence, Rhode Island. I didn't know I'd be living real near there eventually. And when we played back our recordings, now the gentleman who owned the house, he was a funeral director, a senior funeral director, but he was beyond the age of normal retirement. He was like 84, and because he was part owner of the business, he didn't have to retire. He kept going to work. He's bringing his work home with him, I think, because when we played that back, we got far out. These guys are cool. Go get another tattoo. There was a profanity, but they were funny. They woo. They were like people conversing. Talk about like from antiquity. These are like modern. Yeah, that's like that. That's how they sound. And we had a case in Brooklyn, New York. It had the spirit, the dominant spirit, I guess, had such a personality. I actually called him Wise Guy. This was a TAPS case, Satori.
Yes.
I don't think you'd remember it, but you weren't there. But it was in Brooklyn, New York, and a 3-story brownstone house. And the spirit was so prevalent, I actually dubbed him Wise Guy, and it caught on. We referred to him as Wise Guy because one of our investigating members was his tactic was to go upstairs to a bedroom and start screaming and yelling and cursing at the spirit there. All right, you pick on a little girl. Why don't you take me on, huh? So this guy's beating up on the air for a while, and I actually went in there when he left, and I said to the whatever was there, I said, I must apologize for my young friend. So that evening we're recounting what we did, and we're having dinner at the house, and we're recording everything. So we played back the audio recording, digital recording, and as this guy is telling, oh yeah, I stood right up to that spirit. Well, we hear this like kind of whispering sound, and it's like, and then it's becoming more clear, and a sibilant voice goes, shh, shh, shh. And then it's going, yeah. This is, like we're playing it back, and one of the guys telling about how he stood up to the spirit goes, F you, man. Yeah, F you, man. And then it goes, it makes a funny noise. It's a male voice, and I'm like, so Wise Guy, that personality to it is reactive, and it's I got to like the spirit personally. So you're a pretty cool guy. I don't know, we're supposed to be clearing you out or the house or whatever, but I kind of like you being here. Hold it. So some of them you just got to warm up to the spirit, I think.
Yeah. Tori, you've had so much communication. It's like
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even begin to go into some of the stories. I mean, just off the top of my head, I know I've had my appearance made fun of, like the clothes I'm wearing because it's weird.
Me too.
Yeah, Ken has had spirits be like, your mother knit you that hat? Like spirits that are just like 1800s roast sessions. I've had spirits, if I mess up letters, they'll start spelling out new words, and they'll be like, can you actually spell? Like, sarcasm, things like that. We get that a lot.
They spell out the word SIGH.
Wow.
I had one spirit one time tell me, because we were looking for a skeleton key in this house, and they said, I was like, do you know where it is? And they're like, I might have an idea. And so they led us throughout the entire house for like an hour and a half just to lead us to this one room with this little space, and inside was a bobby pin, and they said, this should do the trick. but we spent an hour and a half searching for a skeleton key. Like, it's the little things where they have all the time in the world and they just want to use it to aggravate you if they want. It's that kind of stuff. That's the kind of jokes they play on us a lot.
Yeah. I don't know who. I don't want to cut anybody off here. George, you need to do something? So it's.
Yes, unfortunately, today has not been the best of days. My father's cat passed away from kidney failure.
Oh gosh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and when he's at his age right now, it's everything focuses around his animals. It's kind of devastating. So it's been a long day, and I have a appointment at the VA in Daytona tomorrow morning. I have to leave the house at 7 to get down to Daytona. So I have to bow out, guys. But fantastic. It's been a lot of fun, and if there's any possibility, Ken, next time you see Cody break his hip again, we'll keep doing this for another couple of weeks.
Yeah,
Eventually he's got another one to do. So.
Yeah, it's all about symmetry.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.
Thank you,
Bye,
George.
Talk
Good
to you
night.
tomorrow.
All right, bye.
Yeah, I just wanted to, give George a little space there because I know he's got an early day. So we're going to, again, try to get some of these. I don't know. There was one here that I had my eye on. I don't know how anybody else could answer this. Since you are all on Satori and Cody's show.
That's right.
Do you have a favorite object they have in their museum or one that you find interesting?
And don't say the newest one because I haven't announced that one yet.
I was going to say that when we got a sneak preview at a number of items they have, you're going to be fascinated with. Our researcher, Chris, and Chris knows Chris, he's just absolutely losing his mind right now researching these things. They're great. So that's for another place for another time. For those who have seen the museum, they're all interesting. This is a tough one. I can tell you which one I find the most fascinating, and that's Jolie, the doll who tends to we've got her on video moving around, and it's bizarre and creepy at the same time. For me, on a personal level, someone that I've given presentations on in the past because I love the idea. I give a talk, and I've done an extremely strange on Haunted Hollywood. And I'm fascinated with that whole dynamic in terms of the haunts. But they have items that were personal effects of Peg Antwistle.
Yes.
Now, if you don't know who that is, this is the woman who climbed the Hollywood sign, I think back in the 30s, and threw herself off, committed suicide because of a lack of roles that were coming to her. And the ghost story is she still wanders, and rangers up at Griffin Park have seen her and things. But to actually literally hold her lipstick tube in our hands and see that there's still lipstick left inside of it and some of her personal effects, that really struck me. And to unbox them at our kitchen table here with Cody and Satori was just, I was, pretty blown away by that, to actually have that pieces of history in my hands. So that would be my answer on the museum. I don't know if anybody, I think we've all seen it, but do you guys have anything that stands out to you?
I'm impressed with the truck.
Yeah.
The fact that you guys fit that all in there and take it out on the road, that's pretty impressive. I've seen you do it, and wow, that's something to see.
Thank you. Thank you.
I don't have the organizational skills to pull that off. So yes, I've always been impressed by that as well. I can't claim to have anything favorite, only because every time I've had the opportunity to be at the museum, I'm also running a booth, and so I don't get the kind of time to mingle that I would like to. But one of these days, I'll actually be free enough to explore the museum in detail.
Yes, I hope you guys can. We'll have to get you in there when we open up our first exhibition location, hopefully by the spring or summer, where you guys can see at least most of them. For me, I agree. Peg stuff is very interesting because it's so beautiful, and there's some things there that are actually backed up by documentation when you search them up. For example, we have the actual playbill for Peg Oh My Heart, which was the play that she went to, and it was dated the year that she went to it, where she decided she was going to call herself Peg. Things like that, which is really interesting. I have to say another item was a compass recovered from the Dyatlov Pass. That was an item that was given to us from somebody in Russia that had come across it, sticking out of the ground by a tree. It's a 1950s compass, which makes sense. It's very interesting. There's also a couple other items, the dolls that move around, the statues that move around, the dark room, which is, very intense, but we do have some really interesting items that will allow certain people to see if they can prove to me that they're mentally sound and mature enough to go into that room.
Right out.
But yes.
Dolly Belfiore, shame on you. It smelled of cinnamon, Dolly. Yeah, moving on now. I guess we're staying till 11. We're doing a 2-hour show.
Seems that way.
Let's get to one we can immediately answer. Linda Goth, have you ever been to Skinwalker Ranch? No.
No,
I've been offered, but no.
No.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, right.
I suppose it would be a curiosity thing.
Oh yeah.
More than anything. Okay, it's like these are really. I mean, some of these are really good. Okay, here's one. What is the weirdest object you have seen that had been paranormal energy?
Ooh, the strangest item I have seen. Well, that's a hard one. We have some, and this is kind of like, warning to some people that are squeamish about some things. We have like certain parts of animals that are believed by certain belief systems that they can cause curses and things like that have people have had activity around. So we kind of have these mummified or taxidermy parts that have been sent to us without us really ready to see them, which I won't go into too much detail about. We also had somebody email us, and if this person's watching, I hope you're well, but it was funny because the first email said, I have my grandfather's eye. Can I send it to you? And come to find out it was it's like a glass eye, like a red type eye.
Yeah.
But it was really funny. I was expecting an eyeball, but
The thing about your museum now, though, you have reached the point of density that you can set up categories. It's not just simply, it's like, here's all our stuff. You can put up historical things, you can put up oddities, you can put up medical oddities, you can put up ancient artifacts. And, because you're accumulating so much of this now that you're setting up wings
I know
your museum. We're
going to need a bigger building or multiple buildings.
You're going to give Mumler a run for its money here. Another quick question, real quick, and do you do security sweeps of the locations you are going to investigate? Do people ever surprise you while you're investigating? I have not run into those type of things. We're usually pretty self-contained. The worst things that have ever happened to us are when you are the entertainment for the night and you show up to somebody's place and they've invited their entire family to watch the ghost hunters do their thing. Those can be uncomfortable, obviously, because you've lost control of the area and people are talking, and investigations are really intrusive things. This is what people don't understand. No, you can't talk, you can't watch TV, you can't do these type of things if we're coming in. So, those have been the worst, things in terms of control. But, we've never run into a homeless person someplace. And or anything like that. Can't, not to say it can't happen, but most of the places we go to are, they're pretty self-contained. Believe me, I've turned down places that I would never bring my team into just because of the element of danger in a particular neighborhood or something like that, because we don't want to go out and have our car up on blocks. So we kind of take care of each other when it comes to that. But I can't answer in the affirmative there. I don't have any real cool stories for you about people jumping out at us. I remember going out on some taps cases where we showed up at the door and they were so disappointed that Jason and Grant were not showing up.
Yeah.
I can vividly remember going on a couple of those cases with the Taps home team. So
Yep.
sorry.
Oh dear. I have Googled the people, sometimes people and places that we've gone to investigate and run them through the Rhode Island Judiciary website and come up with some surprising things.
I know.
I mean, it's just, nothing that kept us away, but knowledge is power. And, just have someday, it may come in handy. It's a good habit to get into.
You just don't go and say, guess what we found out.
No,
We've got to talk about this. No, because people have
Hey, how about
different
that?
histories. Yeah. But, but there's kind of an unspoken communication too. It's like, without saying it, and I know that you know that I know, but I do know what you know. But now I know. And all of that is not voiced. It's just a kind of expression, and you see it. Yeah. But it's never an abusive situation. We never like try to defame the person or expose them or anything. It's like whatever they choose to share with us.
It's tough. Occasionally you will find people who, unfortunately can be disrespectful in these situations. I mean, I've never been in any kind of an investigation or anything where, again, there was a security concern or, I had somebody sort of, sneak on site. But I used to run in Newport, Rhode Island for years. I ran a ghost tour and it was great fun and it was all historical ghost stories. But occasionally you would get people who, because they see a tour going by, feel the need to heckle, feel the need to trail along, feel the need to cause problems and be incredibly disrespectful. And it's unfortunate because you're in a situation where you can't really make a huge fuss about it. You can't make a scene about it. You're guiding a group of people, and it's not much different than being on a public investigation. You have to keep a level of, decorum, but it can be very tough when you deal with people who just unfortunately are they have nothing else going on in life. So being disrespectful and, harassing people is what they do for fun. So that's the worst of the closest I've come to that kind of situation.
Yeah. I mean, we've had people go by when we're on break, go by in a car outside and go, boo. Like, dude, you really need to work on your material. That's that's what you got,
I actually, to sort of build on that, one of the funniest and most entertaining things is that initially when I first started doing a ghost tour many years ago back in Newport, I just dressed in street clothes because I was like, listen, I'm not an actor, I'm a folklorist. But eventually I decided to loosen up and sort of, proverbially let my hair down. And so I started going out in colonial garb. So I had the tricorn hat, I had the long coat, I was carrying a lantern. And so I'd be walking through the streets of this 400-year-old town, with a lantern in full colonial garb. And I did everything in my power when I passed people to be completely straight-faced about it and basically pretend that I was a ghost walking down the street. And that got them pretty good. You basically act as though you don't see anybody around you and they don't know what to make of it. It was wonderful.
Are you and Cody run into any of that kind of stuff yet, or?
Yes. First off, with the sweeping, I'd say ask my dad. He has quite a few stories of some people being at locations we've investigated in, and when you're walking in an abandoned tunnel that you think is abandoned, and all of a sudden there's somebody standing there, it's kind of scary. But you should definitely ask my father about that. When it comes to people heckling and stuff, it's funny because we kind of do the same thing. If we're getting really irritated, but we have to act professional as possible, kind of like what you do with the lantern, but we are a lot simpler about it. So, for example, if they're driving by and they're heckling us, or they're walking by and just being rude and kind of ruining it for people, we'll just look at them sometimes and be like, "Wait, you can see us?" And we'll really I'll start talking to Cody. I'll be like, "Oh my gosh, they can see us." and we'd start like freaking out, and we'll play into it with each other. Some things like that, just to kind of make light of the situation. But we've had that quite a bit.
Gosh.
We have a couple of questions here. I'm going to put them up in sequence because they both pertain to an experience that I had. The first one is Audrey wants to know, did you ever see an apparition? If so, what did it look like? And following that up, has there ever been a time that you've become so afraid or frightened that you've had to stop an investigation? So I'm going to answer that from my perspective. Who do we lose, Chris?
Yeah.
We did.
You probably went to the bathroom. Okay. Yeah. Paint House Museum. God, 2011 2011. I saw an apparition of a little girl crossing a hallway. Very, very tiny. Did not acknowledge me. Saw it from profile. Across. I was sitting in the room by myself. Little did I know that a couple of people earlier had seen a pair of legs walking under the table toward the direction of the place where I saw the little girl. We reviewed it on our camera, and what the camera showed is a pulsating ball of energy crossing the hallway. Where I saw a little girl, the camera picked up a pulsing ball of energy at the same pace, which is what led to my theory of projection and perception, how they send it to you, how you receive it, which I'm not going to get into. At that point, when everybody came in the room, and we were there with the TAPS home team, and everyone came into the room, that was the one time I took a walk outside to process what I just saw, because there was a lot going on, a little girl, and I saw this in front of me. So it wasn't like a frightening thing or anything like that. It was just a matter of going outside, clearing my head for a little while, processing what I just saw, and then, reconciling it. Okay, this happened. It was an experience. This is, what I signed up for. Take a breath. Go back inside, and it was uneventful after that. But yeah, there are times that I think that you get shocked by something. I don't know if anyone has ever, we've never run out of a place, but you get those jump scares when you're not expecting something, and it could be a sight, could be a sound, it could be anything that just isn't there. So you just gather yourself a little bit. That's what you do. That's what you're supposed to do. But yeah, I've had to walk out in that instance, and maybe a couple more, where I just had to take a breath, process it all, come to grips with it, and then, okay, this happened, and just get back in the game. So that's my story.
Wow.
So how about you guys?
I
I was going to be like, the Academy Awards. I was going to play music to kind of play myself off.
Oh no, I'm almost done.
So have you guys had something similar where I've known all of you for a long time, and I don't, I'm not aware of any time that, anybody's told me, oh yeah, we fled from the house.
No.
But there are times when those things happen.
No.
Yeah, I've had times where I wanted to, but I knew I wouldn't. Especially nighttime investigation. When I was at a house it was in Coventry, Rhode Island, in 2000. 2007 and 2008, and so much stuff was happening in that house. I just wanted to leave. So we all did after a while. It's like, I don't want any more shocks. I don't want any more scary. But it was all the more fascinating because of that. And people have asked me now, what was that? Was would you define that as demonic, or was it like a human haunt, or was it residual? Was it shadow person? And I just say, yep, yeah, it was all of those. But it was basically a poltergeist situation, and you'd be hearing things like smash, and you're like, oh God, not again. It gets to you after a while. So I'd want to leave, but I wouldn't. But probably the most scared I've ever been on any paranormal investigation, you could classify this as paranormal, as a cryptid. I was on a Bigfoot hunt because I used to be a Bigfoot researcher, and we came very close to what I still believe, was the creature. It had that eerie effect of everything. It was nighttime, and everything in this. It was at a watershed. The insects stopped. First of all, no sound of nighttime birds, and then there was no cicadas, no humming, no crickets. Everything just stopped, and we're picking up on that. What's different? Wait a minute. There's it's too quiet. It's too quiet here. And we'd done our tree knocking, and this was in a Rhode Island setting, and I am convinced that there was a Bigfoot presence there. However, it was real then. Those 3 years, it was real. It existed. I don't know if it goes in and out of reality, but we started to hear this thumping sound. Boom, boom, boom. I can only liken it to like an elephant in the circus where it's on its hind legs performing. It had that thump. And if it was some, pranksters, they would be doing growling. They would be throwing things, going, "Arr!" And you'd hear them in the brush. This thing was approaching down the path from the water. It was coming, and it was getting closer, louder, and Doppler effect. It was really getting towards us. We all wanted to leave. We just wanted to turn and run. We knew we couldn't live with ourselves if we did that, so we stayed. We walked away very fast after a while. But something about thinking of that thing, this tall, ape-like but more human-like creature, coming out and seeing its glowing eyes, are just like, this is too much for me. I can't endure this, but I'm gonna stick with it. I give us and myself credit that we did stay that long, because this thing was obviously approaching us. And then when I worked with the BFRO team for an episode of Finding Bigfoot, it was Matt Moneymaker told me that's what they do. The males will stomp, they'll make noise to scare away other males, be they human or whatever. And I could agree with that, because this thing had heavy footfalls. I grew up in a country setting. I never heard anything that could make that noise. Really, I've thought of all the possibilities. So Bigfoot was real then. In the overall sense, who knows? But it was doing things that couldn't explain away. And that night and those years, Bigfoot in that region was real. So that was my scariest time. They're so physical, potentially.
And it sounds like they were looking to mate, so you probably dodged a bullet.
Maybe that's their mating stop. Yeah, I didn't linger. What did I miss?
All right, Tori, what's up with you right now? You gotta head out, or?
So yeah, I'll answer this question, and then I'm gonna go check in on the troublemaker. So
This is like a scene from Misery here. Right? Just,
Go check on.
no, you can't leave, Cody.
But so to answer the question, it was about apparitions. Have we seen one? For me, I have seen the apparition, and I don't like to go to tell stories about this one because I don't like really mentioning it, but I will say it had a hat and it was very tall. Do with that information what you will. It's a very common apparition seen all around the world. I have seen that on multiple occasions. Cody has seen an apparition, and he tells this story so much better than I can, but I'll tell it for him. So one time we were at this social club, like this historic social club, and we were investigating Connecticut, and he's running an event. I wasn't there that night. I couldn't make it. And he was leading this group of people upstairs, and then he was leading them downstairs. And as he was leading them downstairs, there were a couple people that were having a harder time getting around. They had canes, things like that. So one of the people he thought was with the group was sitting on the couch and just in the dark, minding her own business. And so Cody went, "Are you coming with us?" And she's like, "Oh, I'll be fine here. I'll catch up with you guys. I'll meet with you guys later." And he's like, "Okay." So he walks downstairs and tells Steve Mills from the home team, keep an eye on her. Comes back a little while later because she never joins. And he's like, "Did you check on the woman upstairs?" He goes, "What woman? There's no woman." So he runs upstairs and notices that there's no woman sitting there. And so we looked back on the cameras, and what he thought was a living person was him talking to the dark. There was nobody actually there. But it was really creepy. It was something out of, like, if you've seen Haunting of Hill House, like, it was something out of that, where he's just talking to nothing but
Wow.
you hear an EVP, like you hear mumbling, and he's answering the mumbling. So it's really creepy, actually. But he's seen some apparitions like that, and I don't know. They must like him.
I got a couple of videos like that from the Warner Theater where, again, we're the Taps home team, and one of the investigators waves to an usher and nods to him, and he's in black and white and with a hat on, and we thought it was like very quaint that they dressed their ushers like that. And we said, we don't have any ushers, and when we do, they wear maroon. So we went back and looked at the film, and sure as heck, here comes Tracy Boisel down the hallway, turns to the wall, nods and smiles, and just keeps walking.
It's so creepy when you look back on it. He did the same thing in a library. He saw a woman in a purple coat walking into the elevator and then going down, just saying good night, and he answered good night. Come to find out, that was the deceased librarian of the building, a historic librarian, and he was describing her hair, her coat, and they found the actual like imagery of her in the same exact coat. And he was like, nope, she was alive when I talked to her, I swear.
You get one of these. So, hey, Tori, before you leave, I'm going to put this up there. Tell people about your Patreon.
Oh, thank you so much. Okay, so for anybody interested, Cody and myself have a Patreon program where you can sign up on any specific tier. You can actually sign up for just 1 month if you want and just pay the one initial tier, and you can cancel afterwards. But you can have access to certain contents. You can get, if you get certain tiers, you can get, you know, a replica of our case files that we take some of the information out for privacy reasons, but you get the actual like case file. We have discussions and a Facebook page where we do lives all the time and share information. And we actually have all these tiers, including I have a tier where I do a box subscription where I'll put in some mystery metaphysical goodies, you know, spiritual goodies, and you kind of get crystals and herbs and things like that every month. It's a surprise. So if anybody's interested, it all goes towards helping the museum because we try to treat them the best we can like a foster home. So it'll pay for their cases, for their housing, for cleaning them, things like that, and caring for them properly because some of the objects are really old. So if you're interested, please check out our Patreon. Thank you.
All right, you're very welcome. And I know you got to you're going to leave. We got about 9 minutes here. We'll probably go to like 2, 3 in the morning. So if you want to come back, by the time Cody's healed, we'll probably be wrapping up the show. So much to do, but above all else, give Cody our best. You know, we're all thinking of him. We're all pulling for him. He's fine. Very much a relief that he's home, and you know, just mentally and emotionally is the best place for you.
I know. I feel a lot better now that he's home and he's acting like Cody again. The way I see it, if he can deal with me, he can deal with a hip replacement. So I have full confidence he'll be back up and moving.
Tori, the human hip replacement.
I am worse than that. So if he can deal with
He's
me,
trying to run away.
You could design an interesting logo.
But I will keep you all updated. And for anybody that will, I don't know if we're doing our show not next week, but the week after. I'm not sure how long we're going to be taking a hiatus, but we will keep you all updated. All right. So thank you, everyone, and thank you guys for taking over the show for the night.
Thank you for letting us hijack it tonight.
Good night, guys.
If you need anything, call Dawn or I. Okay.
Of course. Thank you, guys.
You bet. Good night, Tori. All right. Very sweet of her to allow it. Watch the chat numbers go down now. Oh, Tori.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Dawn, if you're still watching, hey, I wanted to get to one question, and this is, I want to take a second here, and I'm sure everybody echoes these sentiments. Thank you so much. You guys hit the nail on the head tonight, because when we decided to come on and hijack the show in Cody's absence, this is what we kind of envisioned, having an opportunity to talk to you rather than having guests on, et cetera, and so forth. You know, giving you a chance to, you know, ask questions, and we want to get to as many of them as possible. We're kind of coming to the finish line here. So I got to pick one. This one I've had my eye on Do you find that science is sufficient in exploring the paranormal? Loaded question.
I have an opinion on that.
Right ahead.
Science is a process. Science isn't just using technology, using detectors, or even just using human detectors like mediums. Science is forming a theory, testing it, coming up with alternative explanations, testing those. So to say, is science sufficient? I mean, as far as we know it, we can only we operate on a linear time frame. So all we can do is, try something. It doesn't work. Try something else to get an answer, to get a. I don't want to say proof. You got to say evidence because nobody really has come up with proof yet. So just following a scientific method to try to come up with some kind of a proof for something that probably just doesn't even exist on the same plane our science is taking place in. It's the best we can do for now.
Yeah, I think that there are 2 points that I want to make, and I'm going to give up the floor. And again, I'll try to give you the condensed version. Bless you, Chris.
Sorry about that, guys.
The first is that when people say they're investigating paranormal scientifically, it's a misnomer. You're using technology. It's not the same. We're not scientists. If you're a scientist in doing this, God bless you. I'm not a scientist. I use technology. And I'm no more scientific than if I cook in a microwave, it doesn't make me a scientific chef. I'm just using a tool. So when people say we approach this scientifically, no, you're using technology. Second of all, my personal opinion, the scientific method is a fool's errand in the paranormal. It doesn't work because the scientific method requires an experiment to be repeatable to the point where anyone who takes the same steps can use it. We have to understand that in the paranormal, and let's leave out cryptids and UFOs for a minute. If we are dealing with people who have passed, and we're talking about how we retain memories and our character and personality, and we take that to the other side. They crack jokes, all the rest of this. Human beings are very volatile creatures. We have good days and bad days. We're happy, we're sad. We ride a roller coaster of emotions. Okay, depending on what someone asks you or said, it can set you off. So everything isn't orderly to the point that we went into Payne House. I walked through this door. I asked this question. Carl, I want you to go in, walk through that threshold and ask this question. You're dealing with humans at one point who, again, are very volatile. This is not repeatable. So the idea when the scientific community says, aha, boulder dash, what you're doing doesn't fall. Tell me what the scientific method is that you could possibly, there are elements of it you can introduce, but nothing's repeatable here.
Right.
And I'm not trying to be highbrow when I compare us to like anthropologists. Anthropologists will tell you that the earth is their laboratory. And if you're on a dig somewhere, you could have hot days. It could rain the next day and completely wash out all the work that you've done. So our laboratory is not a sterile, antiseptic environment where we can do the same thing. So I don't even know where we got to the point. Personally, I think it's something that skeptics love to throw at the paranormal. You use scientific method. Doesn't apply here. All you can do is document, peer review, ask questions, be honest with yourself. After that, I gave up trying to appease science years and years and years ago because I could put the most phenomenal thing up there and it would be torn apart in no small part because there are so many hoaxes going on there now.
Right.
Using technology that one hoax can undo 100 pieces of good evidence.
Right. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence.
Okay, I'm getting off my soapbox now.
He's got. Well, you said it all.
Yeah, I can't really add to that. I mean, I'm with you 100% on that. And, and I think that you're right, unfortunately, that one of the most damaging things, and it's one of the reasons that I maintain the skepticism. One of the most damaging things in the field of paranormal investigation is poor paranormal investigation, because there are so many people, if you're on social media, who are posting videos, posting TikToks, have websites, have YouTube pages or whatever, constantly churning out evidence, and the evidence has absolutely zero backup. It's not merely unscientific, but it's there's no, a photo taken from one angle 60 feet away of a blurry image in a window, and these people don't say, I saw this thing and this happened and this happened. They say, oh, and this is a picture of such and such who died on this date. You can see that she's wearing her feathered hat like she always does, and it's nonsense. And unfortunately, because those people have such a strong following, people want to believe that absolutely deflates real evidence. And so I think that's unfortunate.
We have a term we use in Rise Up now with those people. It's like, we got Bathsheba'd.
Oh
Bathsheba.
my God, she became a verb.
Yeah.
Bathsheba became a verb.
Go ahead, Elise. I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm just saying. I used to have a kitchen cabinet that would open on its own, and it was just that my house was crooked, and the magnet had let go, and it would open up slowly, and you'd try to close it, and sometimes you'd close it, and then about 5 minutes later, it would start to open up, and I'm like, gee, I should stick a camera in that kitchen and just use this somewhere.
Paranormal caught on camera, you could make a splash with that.
You could sell that for sure.
Yeah. Now, was that the only cabinet that opened on its own? Actually, that would make more sense if it was the only cabinet. It didn't take turns.
I have a neat ghost.
This has been, we're up on 2 hours now for an hour show, so I thoroughly enjoyed every minute of this.
Yeah,
this was a very good idea.
And we all have our shows, and before we sign off here with those that are left, and it's quite a few actually, thank you so much for hanging with us, and I promise we'll do this again someday where we get people. We've got a lot of new things coming up on the channel. One that I'm particularly excited about, that's going to be a pre-recorded program from Los Angeles we got coming up. So this will be interesting, where we have a host who's going to visit different psychic emporiums in Los Angeles, interview the people who own them and run them, and give you a little overview of what they're doing on the West Coast. So more on that later, but we'll go around really quickly right now. Carl and Lee, tell everybody real quickly about Panoramic Perspectives. What's next?
Well, we have an interesting array of guests. Our next show will be, I believe, on the 26th of January. Next Thursday. It's every other Thursday from 8 to 9. And hard to say what guests we'll have until we know the next one will be coming up. And maybe I'll save that for a surprise. Okay. That'll be Sue Victory and Deb Vickers, who are operators kind of a team. They're docents, but they're paranormal investigators. And they will be sharing some of their stories of Maplecroft and the Lizzie Borden house, and their various go-abouts. I got to say that on Saturday, day after tomorrow, it's almost tomorrow, I will be. I'm organizing and will be staging an Edgar Allan Poe tribute, because today, the 19th of January, is Edgar Allan Poe's birthday.
Birthday of the master.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we will be honoring Edgar Allan Poe literary tribute, and Elise will be participating, and it's going to take place at the North Situate Public Library, 606 West Greenwich Street Road in North Situate.
West Greenville.
West Greenville Road. Yeah, actually, yeah, you're right. West Greenville Road in North Situate. So just North Situate Public Library on Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. honoring Edgar Allan Poe. I'm even going to try and get him to show up. That's going to be the surprise of the day.
And Christopher, you've got a peach of a show coming up Monday on the new iteration
Yes,
Monday Night
Monday Night Monsters is now Monday Night Mysteries, Myths, and Monsters. We've sort of spread our umbrella a little bit to, broaden our perspective. And this upcoming Monday, which is the 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, don't hold me to that, but it's definitely this coming Monday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. We're going to be doing an hour live show on Jack the Ripper, one of the most fascinating serial killer cases in all of history. And I'm not a big serial killer guy, but Jack the Ripper's always fascinated me. And if he's fascinated you, or if in fact you don't know anything about Jack the Ripper, join us for our live hour. Myself and Ron Murphy will break down the infamous case of London's Whitechapel killer. And
Right.
So very, very much looking forward to that.
And for George and I, this Sunday, we will be back with another episode of Dead Air right here on the Dead Air channel, KGRA Digital, Facebook. We are omnipresent. We're hard to get rid of. But this week, Deborah and RJ DeRouse from Michigan, and we are going to take a little bit of a hiatus from this and get into UFO talk with them. We're going to talk about Michigan being a hot spot. And in 2 weeks, as we mentioned before, we're hoping to bring you the postmortem review of the live stream investigation at the Alley Theater, which exceeded everybody's expectations. Right from the first half hour, you're not going to believe some of the things we got. Also, Extremely Strange, my pet project, where the guy in the baseball hat sitting right here with my stained glass ghost on the wall behind me,
Yeah, that's
right
cute.
there, and UFO. This week's episode is the Lindley Street haunting in Bridgeport, Connecticut, which I maintain is the best documented case of an actual poltergeist haunting in history.
Oh.
And you'll find out why when firemen and policemen enter this house and things are flying all over the place in full view of them. It's kind of been forgotten a little bit from the early 70s.
Interesting.
But it's an amazing it's an amazing story. So that's going to wrap it up from us tonight. I thank Elise, Carl, Chris, George, and especially Satori for letting us hold down the fort. Next Thursday, of course, will be Panoramic Perspectives. The following week, well, we'll see how Cody's feeling, or maybe we'll do something similar to this. So from all of us to all of you, you guys have a great week, and we'll see you again soon. Thanks for joining us.
Good
Good night, everybody.
Really cranky.
Cranky. I'll get hanky.